Hey, what's going on, guys? Justin here with AmericanTrucks.com, and today I'm taking a closer look at and showing you how to install the stainless steel Barricade 3.5-inch bull bar with skid plate and included 20-inch light bar, fitting all 19 to 24 Ram 1500s, excluding the Rebel and TRX. Now, the Barricade will be a great option for newer Ram owners out there looking to get some additional front end protection, along with a little bit more lighting on the front of their truck, while not having to do any crazy drilling. Now, the Barricade will boast a polished stainless steel build, along again with that included 20-inch light bar, and can be had all for right around that $500 price point. Now, starting with our features block, there are a few to cover here. First and foremost, let's start with the additional front end protection you are getting from the inclusion of a bull bar. Now, I do want to point out right off the bat, guys, this is not going to give you the utmost protection such as a brush guard or some gnarly stainless steel bumper. However, this will give you some additional protection from light impacts on and off road, maybe some obstacles, things like that. In addition to that, guys, you're also looking at a really sharp, polished stainless steel build here, making this a great choice for any chrome package Ram owner out there. This will flow very well with your truck. Or on the other hand, if you have a sport truck, color match bumpers, and you wanted to add some chrome or polished stainless, this would certainly help get you there as well. Lastly, of course, we're talking about the inclusion of auxiliary lighting into the actual bull bar itself here, guys. Again, without any drilling. A lot of times, if you want to add additional lighting to the front end of your Ram, chances are you have to drill some brackets somewhere, and that's not always ideal on a brand new truck. So by going with something like this, not only are you getting a tougher look, a little bit more protection up front, but you're also adding some pretty solid lighting firepower in the form of this 20-inch LED bar, and it's gonna integrate seamlessly into the bull bar itself from Barricade. Now, moving into construction, let's start off with the actual bull bar here. And again, this is Barricade's option, which is going to deliver a very stout build consisting of a 3.5-inch oval stainless steel tubing and corresponding skid plate down below here, again being polished to that bright finish with that stainless steel. Now, I always like to point out there are, of course, other options available here. Like we mentioned earlier, if you don't have a chrome package truck, then maybe the black option might be a better fit for you instead. And of course, you can find that here on the site if you're interested. All right, so aside from the actual bull bar, again, Barricade does kick in the 20-inch dual row LED light bar. The bar itself does feature 40 individual 3-watt Cree LEDs. Now, these LEDs do feature a combination of both flood and spot patterns, which altogether will crank out a very impressive 10,000 lumens. Now, the Barricade option does also include, of course, all of your hardware and brackets necessary to get everything in place, along with a pretty basic harness to get the light bar wired up. Now, moving into price point and the Barricade option, this polished stainless with the light bar is going to land you just north of $500, give or take a bit, which does make this pretty affordable, I would say, in the land of stainless bull bars that do include some sort of auxiliary lighting. Now, can you just get a plain old bull bar for a lot less? Absolutely. But you have to keep in mind, guys, materials might not be stainless. You might be looking at like a raw or mild steel, and you're not getting a light bar, which obviously adds to the final cost. So again, if you want a very inclusive package, you really value a premium material like stainless, you like the polished finish, and a nice light bar to boost, then this is a very fair price point. All right, last but not least, let's get into the installation. And the site's gonna call this a strong 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, and maybe 2 hours or so to get everything installed and wired up. So it's kind of a 2-part job. So don't let that scare you, because we're gonna show you how it's all done right now. So without further ado, let's throw it out to the shop for our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a ratchet, scissors or diagonal cutters, a clip remover tool, flathead screwdriver, 13 and 18 millimeter wrenches, 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench, a swivel adapter, an extension, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, and 18 millimeter sockets, and some zip ties.
What's up, guys? Today we're installing a bull bar on our Ram. First, we're gonna remove our front bumper. So we're gonna watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove it, and then I'll meet you right back here for the install.
So
So right off the bat here, you can see our truck is on the lift. I just wanted to say, you don't need a lift to do this. This is definitely extremely easy. We just do that to make it a little bit easier on our camera guy, make sure he can see everything and get you the information that you need to know to do this to your brand new Ram. First step though, we're gonna grab the ratchet 8mm socket. There's 5 bolts we're going to remove in the wheel well right here. We're gonna get those out of the way, and that's going to allow us to remove a plastic wheel well liner that's connected to our front bumper. So now we have those 3 out. This piece is loose on our bumper, but it's still kind of trapped in there. So there's 2 more we're gonna remove, and that should pull right out. And you can see those are slotted, so you only need to loosen them up to be able to pull that plastic piece out of the way. Now we're gonna come over to the other side and do the same thing. So once you got the driver's side plastic removed, we can move on to the next step. And that's gonna be this master wiring harness. We gotta disconnect that, and that'll unplug all the electronics on our bumper. First thing we're gonna do is move this switch from that position right there to the open position, and that will allow us to pop open this clamp right here, like so. And then if we just keep going with that, it should push the plug apart. Now, next up, we could actually move underneath the bumper here and disconnect this thing from the frame. There's 3 18mm nuts that hold this thing on. The one that I have the wrench on right now is a little bit tough to get to with the impact gun, so ratcheting wrench it is, but the other 2 aren't so bad, so we should be able to get into those with the socket and extension to remove them, and then we're gonna do the same thing for the other side. And just like the other side, we're gonna start at the top with the ratcheting wrench, then move to the impact for the last 2. Now we're gonna remove the 2 bolts on the outside. This is the last thing holding on our bumper, so you wanna make sure you have a good handle on it before you remove these. Now this bumper is loose, so we're just gonna pull it straight back and off the truck.
So now that we have our front bumper removed, we've got a couple things we're gonna have to pull off of this. The first thing is gonna be this air dam at the bottom here. We've got a bunch of 10mm nuts holding this on, and we're gonna grab a 10mm socket to remove. Now you don't have to remove this. You can cut this out where your brackets are gonna sit, but the brackets are gonna have to pass through the splash guard area. For demonstration purposes, we're not gonna be cutting ours, but if you want to, we'll install the brackets, you can line it up, and then you can make your cut. So now just start at one side, work your way across, and pull this off. Next, we're gonna remove these support brackets here. We've got 2 bolts here, and then we've got a push clip, and then a push clip coming up through the bottom. So we're gonna start with the bolts. And then you can grab a clip remover tool. We're gonna have to unhook our wire harness. There's 1 clip on each. So just get under there and pry that out. Next, we're gonna remove these 2 push clips, and then that'll free up our splash guard from the bumper. So grab your clip remover tool and just pop these out. Now with those popped out, we can just pull down on our splash shield to remove it. Now our side piece here that our fender liner is going to screw into is loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the splash guard. I'm just going to get a little flathead screwdriver to pry up on this tab here, and then slide that clip off. And now I'm going to stick that stud back through the hole. That way that'll hold this in place. Thread your nut on, and then grab your 10mm socket, tighten down the nut, and grab that flathead screwdriver to put in that U-clip to prevent it from spinning, and tighten that down, and do the same thing on the other side. Now next we're going to install our mounting brackets. These are stamped D or P for driver or passenger. So we're going to start out by taking our bolt plate, and we're going to put it through this circle hole. And then we have this retaining clip that will thread on. And then grab a 13mm socket and remove these 2 bolts. And then you can lay your bracket on. I'm gonna get our flat washer, lock washer, and nut onto that stud first. So just get a hand under it to push up from the bottom. And once you have your nut threaded on, take your new bolt with a lock washer and flat washer, get your holes lined up, and thread that in. Do the same thing down here. And then grab a 13mm socket and tighten all these down. And then do that same thing on the other side. Next, we're gonna install our support bracket. This is gonna be done on this bolt. If you have a tow hook equipped on your Ram, then it's gonna be the back bolt holding the tow hook in place. So take an 18mm socket and loosen that up. You just need a big enough gap to slide this in. Just like the other bracket, they're stamped D or P, and you want this going towards the center of the truck. Slide that in and snug that bolt up. Now I'm just tightening that down with a ratchet for now so that we can still move it a little bit to make adjustments if we need to line this up to our other bracket. And then we've got enough access here where we can come back and tighten it down with a ratcheting wrench later. So now we can start assembling our bull bar. We're gonna start with our light bar here. You're gonna drop it into that slot. You've got a hole on each side for your bolt to thread into. Now we're using these short 13mm bolts with a lock washer and flat washer, and we're just gonna get those threading in first. Get it threaded on both sides before you tighten it down. And once you have that threaded in on both sides, take your 13mm socket and tighten these down. Next, we're going to install our mounting brackets onto our bull bar. So we're just going to drop these into place. The mounting plate's going to be towards the inside here. And then you're going to take your bolts with a lock washer and flat washer and thread those into the threaded holes. And now I'm just going to straighten up this bracket and then take a 13mm socket and tighten these down. And then do that same thing on the other side. So now before we throw our bumper back on, we're going to get all of our wiring situated first. I've got this laid out across the engine bay, kind of how it's going to go. I've got terminal connectors up here that are going to go to the battery. I've got my switch running off to the side. That's gonna go through a grommet next to the brake booster here. And then I've got the connector that's gonna go down towards the light bar, just draped across the front of the engine bay. I'm probably gonna run that right down here in front of the fuse box. So I'm gonna start on our battery connections here. I'm gonna take a 12mm socket to loosen up the nut on the positive terminal. And then you can take your red wire, drop that on top of that terminal, and thread the nut back on and tighten it back down. And then switch over to a 10mm socket and go over to the negative. And then drop your black wire onto there, thread your nut back on, and tighten it back down. So now that we have our battery terminals hooked up, I'm gonna run our switch next. Now, right to the right of our brake booster, under this little module, there's gonna be a grommet. It's gonna be really hard to see because it's pretty blocked. It's hard for me to see sticking my head down there, but it's directly under this module. So you're just gonna grab the side of it and push it out of place. And then just make sure you're not going around your hood strut or anything. I'm gonna go underneath of this ground wire just to make it a little cleaner. I'll run it behind the battery tray here. And then just reach down in there once you have that grommet pushed out of place and slide that switch through. And then we'll pop the door open, go inside the cab and pull that through on the other side. Now before we hop in the cabin, I'm just gonna run this connector down towards where our light bar is gonna be since we're still here. Now, right in between the fuse box and the battery here, you've got pretty much a straight shot to the ground. So I'm just gonna feed that down and then I can just reach around and grab it and pull that down towards the floor. We'll come back and zip tie up all of our excess wiring later. So I'm just gonna let that dangle for now. So now in the driver's seat, you can reach up under the dash towards that grommet and pull your wire through. And now at this point, you can put it wherever you'd like. I'm gonna put it right down here so it's nice and out of the way. So peel that double-sided tape backing and stick it down.
So now I've got a buddy. We're gonna lift our bumper back up onto our frame horns and we're just gonna thread one of the nuts on just to hold it in place. So now we're gonna pick up our bull bar, get it onto the brackets, and then take our bigger bolts with a flat washer through the outside, and then a flat washer, lock washer, and nut on the inside. So now we're gonna come underneath the truck to our frame horn. We have a nut down here. I threw this one on when we installed the bumper so that it wouldn't fall back forward. And then we've got these two up top. So I'm gonna thread those nuts on. Now this inner nut is gonna be a little tough to get to. So I'm gonna tighten down the two outers first. That'll pull it nice and tight, and then I can thread on the inner the rest of the way by hand, and then get it with an 18mm ratcheting wrench. So I've got an 18mm socket here. I've got a swivel adapter just to make it a little bit easier, and tighten those down. Then I'm gonna reach back up, thread that back on as far as I can. And I'm gonna get my ratcheting wrench in there. Now while we're down here, I'm gonna take the connector for our light bar and run this over the frame rail towards the center of the truck. And then I'm gonna grab our connector for our bumper harness and plug that in. As you push it, this gray tab's gonna flip over. Press it until it clicks, and then push that red locking tab into place to hold it in. Now we need to connect this main bracket to our support bracket. So take a bolt with a flat washer and put it through from the front. Slide another flat washer, lock washer, and a nut on there. Now I'm just gonna hand tighten that so it holds in position. And then I'm gonna come back to that tow hook bolt, and we're gonna fully tighten that one down now. And now with that tightened down, grab a 13mm swivel socket and a 13mm wrench and tighten that bolt down. And then with all of that tightened down, we can come back to the bolts holding our bull bar, take an 18mm socket and wrench and tighten this down. And then repeat that process on the other side. So now we just need to connect our connector and clean up all of our wiring. So press that in until you get a click, just like that. And then I'm probably gonna zip tie this up to these holes that were for the splash guard. Now, if you still have your splash guard on, you can zip tie it up to the metal up a little bit higher. So I'm just gonna bunch up all of this excess. And I'll grab a zip tie, bunch that up, grab a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, cut off the extra from the zip tie. And then I'm just gonna tuck this underneath this bar here. So I'm gonna get another zip tie, just going through that hole. Gonna connect that up here, tuck everything away. And then once again, just cut off the excess of that zip tie. And now I'm gonna come up and just clean up the wiring for the switch. Bunch all of that up, and then grab a zip tie. And cut off that excess. I'm just gonna tuck this back behind the battery tray. Nice and neat and out of the way. And then we'll just go back down to our wheel wells, reinstall that portion of our fender liner, and we'll be all done. So now we'll reinstall that fender liner. So just slide it in the gap between your clips and the bumper first, and then get it onto those bolts that you loosened up but didn't remove. And then you can thread in your 3 screws. Now I believe these screws are 8mm from the factory. Ours have been replaced, so we have 7s and then we have 8s on the inside. So I'll take a 7mm socket for these and switch to an 8 for the inner one. Now do that same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Barricade 3.5-inch oval bull bar with skid plate and 20-inch light bar in stainless steel for your 19 to 24 Ram 1500, excluding Rebel. Thank you for watching, and for all things Ram, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.